This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode and another new week of Winnipeg Sports Talk and Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Great to have you with us. I'm Andrew Paterson, along with Michael Remis. And holy smokes, we've got a lot of Jets news to get to today. A major injury, a big benching on Saturday night, the first three-game losing streak of the season, and a huge two-game set beginning tonight with the Edmonton Oilers right here in Winnipeg. Coming up a little later on, we will have Murat join us in about 15 minutes or so. We'll go down the long list of Jets topics with our good friend Murat. And as always, we're brought to you by our great sponsors, Not Autocorp, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Breezy Bend, Coolbet Canada, Aikens Lake, and our newest sponsor, Assiniboia Downs. Only having one guest today because, first of all, Remis and I have a million things to get to from the weekend that are, in fact, not Jet-related. And I imagine Jets Talk will take up at least the first hour of the program with the Oilers in town tonight, and so much to get to coming out of the weekend. And, of course, coming out of this morning's media availability with both head coach Paul Maurice and Jets star center Mark Scheifele. Let's get Remis in here. Remo, first things first, how was your weekend? How are you doing? Are you ready to get after it this week on WST?
Oh, yeah, I'm fired up. It got my last bonfire with friends in for about a month, so I won't be doing that anymore. We're not going to get to that, though. We got a lot of Jets topics. We had the Jets game Saturday. We did paint my basement, so I had to move all my equipment and then put it back, like exactly where it was before. I think I eyeballed it, but everything is slightly off. So
gotta make sure. The Slammy's there. The goal light is there. Some of the jerseys are there. You're there. The mic's there. So I don't know. It seems like you did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I don't know. I put the TV at the wrong angle or the monitor, so I'm getting some bad neck pain, but I'll power through.
Oh, you know what? Just that's the grind of the Winnipeg Sports Talk daily life, man. Sometimes you just have to persevere. You got to power through it. As I mentioned, we've got lots to get to today coming out of the game. And, you know, Reem, I figured that today the biggest story, and it still will be a large part of our conversation, will be on Mark Scheifele, who was stapled to the bench for most of the second period on Saturday night in a big game for first place against the Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada. But before we get there, the biggest news coming out of this morning is the fact that Nikolaj Ehlers is going to be out for the remainder of the regular season. When we didn't see Nick out there this morning, I think there was a concern that maybe he, was banged up from, a very physical game on Saturday night. But I'm not sure everyone was prepared for him being out for the rest of the regular season, although the coach said they were, I believe the quote was, confident and hopeful that Ehlers will be back for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, man, I don't even want to think about what the Jets are like with Nikolaj Ehlers. Never mind, it's not as fun to watch them. When we're talking about a best of seven against whoever it's going to be in this North Division playoffs, it's safe to say the Jets are going to need a healthy and strong Nikolaj Ehlers if they want to do anything.
Yeah, and it's tough to pinpoint, what exactly happened to him. We're all talking about the hit he took from Jake Muzzin, where he kind of pushed back on Muzzin. Muzzin was the one who seemed to get a lot of the hit, but you get hit the wrong way, maybe you hit something incorrectly, could be precautionary. They said, Maurice said confident and hopeful he can come back for the playoffs, but you can't understate what he means to the team. Huge part of the secondary scoring and even primary scoring. At times doesn't get the power play 1 minute, but you look at his rate stats in terms of efficiency. He's up there among best players in the league. Excellent zone entries, skating. He talked with you last week about being a shoot first player. We've certainly seen that more this year. So a team that's already missing Adam Lowry as your third line center, you're missing your second line winger who could be a top line winger on many teams. It's, I said a couple weeks ago, everything's going great for the Jets. They haven't changed up the lineup in like at least a month. Wheeler gets hurt, he comes back, and then Lowry's hurt, and now Ehlers is down. So not going great. And the team's also going on a 3-game losing streak. And the goalie their starting Vezina goalie got pulled and said he didn't like it. And then their number one center, who's leading the team in points, gets benched, and he said today he didn't like it. So no shortage. And we also had a very spirited playoff-like game on Saturday against the Maple Leafs. So yeah, no shortage of stuff to talk about here.
Yeah, no, listen, we're going to get to all of that with Murat in just a couple minutes. We can tell you, this is the way the lines looked at practice today. Without Adam Lowry, he came out afterwards in a yellow no-contact jersey, and without Nikolaj Ehlers. So Mark Scheifele is slated to play with Andrew Kopp and Mason Appleton, which is a very interesting look, considering that is normally Adam Lowry's spot on what, is traditionally the shutdown line, if you will. I mean, really focused on checking the other team's best. Pierre-Luc Dubois, coming off 2 of his best games as a Jet, he's going to be with Kyle Connor and Blake Wheeler. And then this is an interesting lineup. Paul Stastny centering Matthew Perreault and likely Christian Vesalainen, which leaves Nate Thompson, Trevor Lewis, and Jansen Harkins for fourth-line duties right now. So, kind of lost in all of this is Vesalainen getting an opportunity to get back in. But I have to tell you, and I'm really looking forward to talking about this with Murat, what we can take from the coach's decision to move Mark Scheifele to play with Andrew Kopp and Mason Appleton, and for tonight's game. And Remis, I'm interested in your thoughts on this before we get to Murat. Is Dubois, Wheeler, Connor the line that's going to get the majority of Connor McDavid tonight? Is it going to be Scheifele along with Kopp and Appleton? Maybe with some more support defensively in a group, without Adam Lowry, do we see, a combination of all of the lines, considering Connor McDavid usually plays 25 to 27 minutes a game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know last time these two teams played, we were paying very close attention to who had the matchups with Connor McDavid. First it was Lowry, then it was Scheifele Connor, and they were on for that shift where they got mixed up, and McDavid would set up a goal there. So maybe he is sending a message. I kind of like your thought. You're putting Scheifele with guys who are more two-way style players. I mean, we both know Kopp and Appleton can contribute offensively, but also very responsible defensively. So I do kind of like that. One thing we haven't seen that I'm very curious about this year, Paul Stastny. I was about to say Paul Stanley, but Paul Stastny. So I've been listening to a lot of Kiss records on the weekend. I'm surprised I haven't done that yet.
Just to clarify, it's not the star child of Kiss. It is, in fact, NHL veteran Paul Stastny that is in the Jets lineup.
This
tonight.
line is very intriguing to me. Paul Stastny, he's getting a shot, playing down in the lineup, playing third-line center with Matthew Perreault, who's excelled this year in the fourth line. He's been excellent, so he's getting a well-deserved promotion. But we will get a look at Christian Vesalainen on a third-line role. We've been hearing how Paul Stastny, one of the smartest players in the league, maybe the smartest player ever that Ehlers said that he's played with. Maybe he can find Vesalainen. We can see what this guy can do, because he really hasn't had too many opportunities throughout his career as a Jet.
No, listen, it is a big chance for Vesalainen, especially with Ehlers out for the next 10 games or whatever it is, to show that he is ready to go when his name is called. And, as we've talked about, much like with the depth on defense, adding in Jamie Benn, trying to get Heinola and Ben in the games right now. If you're going to do anything in the playoffs, you're probably going to need, 8, 9 defensemen. You're certainly going to need more than, the 12 forwards you start in game number 1, just due to attrition. So it certainly is a big chance for Christian Vesalainen. Now, listen, one other thing, Reem, I know you were very outspoken on this. It was a chippy game. It was a physical game. There was a lot going on. You could really feel the animosity between the two clubs. And yet again, another Jet goes down on a questionable play. But you really were hot on this Rasmus Sandin bit, weren't you?
I was fired up.
You were mad online. I was
very mad on. Well, first of all, you look at the way these games have gone, Jets, Leafs, there's been a lot of crap going on, and the Jets are kind of taking it from the Leafs. You had the Lowry hit to the head. Before that, you had the Hyman, tomahawk chop stick on Neil Pionk. You had the hit on Morrissey from behind. And then again, like early in the game, Blake Wheeler gets rocked by Rasmus Sandin. And everyone on my timeline is saying, oh, that's such a clean, textbook reverse hit. I still don't see it. I feel like I'm nuts because I know I'm all for hitting. I'm for clean hits. But I don't see how this is a clean hit. One, Wheeler doesn't have the puck. Two, Sandin jumps back into Wheeler. And, you're worried that the captain, just coming back from a head injury, is going to get hurt again. You're like, what is this? The Jets are just getting run over here by Toronto. But I'll say this on that play is Sandin took a path to the puck where you don't see defensemen turning their back to the forechecker. He came in, and people say he was bracing himself for the hit. He was going to lay out Wheeler the entire time, and he hit him with his back. From one angle, it does look that Wheeler just ran into him. But the other angle, Sandin, he literally planted his feet and jumped into Wheeler. Now, Wheeler, he's in a position where, look, if he hits Sandin, who's showing his back to Wheeler, he's going to get a penalty. So he was looking to poke the puck away, and he's not, penalty for boarding if you ran him over. So I don't know. If Sandin wants to go and hit him there and wants to do a reverse hit that we've seen Wheeler now get hurt twice on, go and hit him with your shoulder. Why are you showing him your back? So that was my main issue. If two guys are going for the puck, one guy gets hit, fine. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of a cheap hit, and we've seen a lot of those. He got hurt earlier. And I was fired up. I'm still fired up because I feel like I'm in the minority of the people who think so. Maybe I'm just plain wrong, and I don't know what I'm talking about. But
hit us up in the comments with your thoughts on this because it is very split. Some people are right there with you, Reem. Other people think that hey, it was just sort of bad luck. Blake Wheeler was just sort of bracing himself and got in an awkward position. Yeah. And there's a lot of people say that at minimum it's interference because Wheeler didn't have the puck. So. I knew you wanted to get that
I don't think he was bracing himself.
Released, Remis.
He was going in, he skated backwards into Wheeler. He showed him his back. And what era are defensemen taught to show their back to a forechecker like that? It doesn't happen. So, whatever. Bring on Murat. I need to calm down. I need to drink a water.
We're seeing, there's Taylor. I thought it was dirty too. North End Dan, you're right, Remis. James Robinson. It was a risky play by Sandin. He put himself into a very vulnerable position and should feel lucky that Wheeler did not board him. Taylor said, I argued about it with my dad for hours, LMAO. Sandin G, I agree. Hustler interference. And then Mitch, the Godfather, Remo, you're not in the minority. It was interference all day. So,
I go on Twitter. Every single one's like, "Oh, what a hit by Sandin." I don't know. Maybe because this is a Jets chat, or I don't know. Talking to Jesse,
you're gonna get more sympathy for the Jets here than you do on the national broadcast. I'll tell you that.
Well, the
much.
broadcast, they seem to think it was clean and had no issue, and I think a lot of people were turned off by that too. They didn't even mention it. I think it's kind of a cheap. If you're gonna hit a guy, hit him with your shoulder in the guy's chest and look at him. Don't have your back to him and show yourself in a vulnerable position, then drill him. You're
finally getting the support you've been looking for all weekend just by reading
my mentions. People were fired up with my mentions. I didn't. I'm not like Jim Toth where I'm going to engage with every person. I gotta keep my heart rate under control.
You're bringing Blocktober to spring. Hey, speaking of spring. Just before we get to Murat, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Listen, I know we've just heard from the province about some new health guidelines, restrictions, and whatnot for gathering. The one thing you can do is get outside and take advantage of the nice weather that's on the way. And the best way to do that, head on down to Royal Sports, whether you're looking at a new bike, some new fitness equipment, soccer, baseball equipment. We still can get outside, and that's, I think, what everyone should be doing right now. So why not get a head start on it? One-stop shop for everything that you need. Royal Sports, 650 Raleigh in EK or 750 Pembina Highway with the Superstore. And, of course, our friends at Knott Auto Corp. My brother called me this morning. I think he's going to be heading down to Knott Auto Corp. The van is no more. Time for a new whip. And why not? get a great deal on the car of your dreams at Not Auto Corp. You can check them out at Waverly and McGillivray. You can look them up online for what they've got, including all those amazing Teslas at not.ca. And if you're in a vehicle right now that you want to get out of, talk to them about their great consignment program. They can help you out with that. It's all there, Not Auto Corp, Waverly and McGillivray, and online at not.ca. All right, we have lots to get to with our next guest. We welcome in our good friend Murat of The Athletic. And Murat, how are you? How was your weekend before we get into all this craziness around the local hockey team?
How was my weekend? My weekend was spent sorting out the melee between the Jets and Maple Leafs. I don't know if you noticed, but my weekend was also partially spent pissing off Toronto Maple Leaf faithful by asking about some of those questionable hits against the Jets in the previous game. But all in all, I'm healthy, I'm well, I get to go talk about hockey, watch hockey for a living. So, I will never complain about how things are set up.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Even with this news today of some more restrictions, I think we all realize that we got to get it done and we got to get into a better place right now. And if that means staying home and watching and obsessing about the Winnipeg Jets, I think there's a lot of people with us today that have signed up for that. Listen, we'll dive into the entire Scheifele story in a minute because I think that could really dominate the conversation. But I have to ask you, your reaction, the loss of Nikolaj Ehlers, what does this mean for the Jets in the short term? And I guess we've got to take the coach for, at face value that they're both confident and hopeful. I hope there's more confidence than hope in their Murat. Safe to say it's a huge loss for the Winnipeg Jets right now heading into the postseason.
100%. I think a lot of folks, whether you've realized it this year or not, are about to find out that Nikolaj Ehlers is Winnipeg's most valuable forward. This is the guy who leads the Winnipeg Jets in points per minute. He's the zone entry machine. He's tied with Connor McDavid for the best penalty differential in the league. That adds goals to the Jets as well. He has more points per minute in his even strength ice time plus his tiny little bit of power play time than any other Jet has points per minute. And that includes Scheifele, Connor, Wheeler, who play big minutes on that top power play unit. He's fun to watch. He's developed a little bit more edge and chippiness in his game this year. This is Winnipeg's most impactful, most dynamic forward. And look, if he comes back in time for the playoffs and he's 100% great, that's fine. But you never know at times like this. If it is in fact a shoulder, which I think it is, I watched right below my seat from the press box as he favored his right arm going off the ice after that hit with Jake Muzzin. I know Paul Maurice didn't want to specify what exact piece of contact it was, but for me, that's the play. He leaves the ice holding his shoulder, he goes off the ice, he comes back. Whatever happened in that room, he fired up adrenaline, whatever you want to do, that's the moment for me. And that's danger for me as well. I guess we're grateful it's not a concussion because those things can go a number of ways. What can I say? I think he's Winnipeg's most valuable forward. And I know that the Jets have responded by firing into a top 9 sort of setup, which is a good recovery look for them. But he's the best one.
Yeah, and he's been proving it game in and game out all season long, and we're going to see what this Winnipeg Jets team looks without the dynamic contributions of Nikolaj Ehlers for the next little while. I will say this, and we can kind of move the Lowry injury into this as well, Murat, in that the optimist would say, thank God this happened now and not in 2 games left in the regular season or the last game in the regular season, because at least I think what we're getting from the Winnipeg Jets is that they are confident that these players will be back when the games really count. And, I guess the benefit of the success the team has had on the scoreboard so far this year is that, especially in the aftermath of losing those 2 games to the Maple Leafs and having 8 points to make up, we pretty much know where the Jets are going to be. I don't know, barring winning all the games or losing all the games, I think we pretty much know the Winnipeg Jets are going to be in that 2-3 spot and could very well be playing the team they play tonight. What's important, I think, from a Jets perspective, and, I think while they'll take all the caution in the world with those 2 key players before getting them back in the lineup, is that you want them to be at max health with the greatest ability to help the team when the games mean the most.
Exactly. Absolutely. There is a blue sky scenario if you want to be an optimist. Both of these guys Winnipeg is able to use their spot in the standings to take their time, let them recover, do everything so that they come back at 100%. That's the best case scenario. Then they have fresh legs in time for the playoffs as well. That's great. But I keep thinking back to 2018, 2019, the year that Winnipeg went down to the Blues. And you have that excellent start to the season, then Ehlers gets hurt, Byfuglien gets hurt, Morrissey gets hurt right before trade deadline day, and we spend the entire stretch run talking about the Jets being able to flip that switch on. Maybe when everybody comes back fully 100% healthy, they're going to be able to take it to a St. Louis team. Not what happened. Absolutely not what happened. And then you have the issue with, was Dustin Byfuglien at 100%, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, until the moment you know that he's at 100%, I'm thinking about Nick Ehlers here because I never know how to project a concussion. Until the moment you know he's good to go, he comes back in, he's that exact same dynamic self that you're used to, I'm operating under the assumption that his first week or two, probably more looking at 75, 80% because it's the playoffs and don't want to be there.
Now, the Ehlers story will be something that we're going to be following, throughout as information is made available. But we've been given the timetable. I mean, we know the Winnipeg Jets are playing the rest of this regular season without Nikolaj Ehlers. We'll see when Adam Lowry comes back. What it does give us is a very different look of the lineup tonight. But before we get into the lineup and how things work, I think we've got to talk about Saturday night and the biggest story coming out of the game, which was seeing number 55's rear end stapled to the bench for the majority of the second period before coming back in the third. And I mean, to me, Murat, this is one of the most significant cards Coach Paul Maurice has played in years. I mean, I was talking with guys on Sunday trying to think back to a significant benching of a star player like happened on Saturday night in that scenario, in a game of that importance on national television. And I really couldn't think of one. I mean, there was a time where Maurice sat Scheifele, Wheeler, and Laine as a line down together, but that was essentially, you guys all aren't very good, we're going to play the other guys, and you sort of take that together. This was not on anybody else. This was a direct challenge or response, I guess, from the coach from what he did not like from Mark Scheifele, and you did an amazing job in The Athletic kind of going into detail about the eternal 4-on-4 shift that ended up with the puck in the other net. Let's go back to Saturday night. What did you think about what happened and the decision of Coach Paul Maurice to do something we had not seen in a long, long time, although at times I think it probably would have been warranted?
Yeah, well, I'll start by trying to put this into context. I mean, this season has been a step forward to average defensively from Mark Scheifele. So as much as, and I'll get into this because it was a series of poor decisions, in my opinion, to keep him out for that 90-second shift. Mark Scheifele was a far below average defensive player last season. You saw it with your eyes. You saw him cheating for offense, playing defense high in Winnipeg zone. There are some wishful back checks, hoping the puck's going to go the other way. There are lots of moments you can point to. I have a file of video on it. Especially in a really meaningful game against Tampa Bay down the stretch as well, where Anthony Cirelli ate his lunch. This is not Sean Couturier. This is not Ryan O'Reilly. This is not a two-way superstar in Mark Scheifele. However, he is capable. And heading into training camp this year, he was talking about all of the right things, playing hard, doing the right things, going back, turning back checks into offense, back pressure into offense. And you know what? He's done a pretty good job of it throughout the season. And for me, that's what makes the benching so significant. The idea that he would pass up two opportunities to change well after his initial line mate Blake Wheeler had changed, well after his initial opposition Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner had changed. Nobody was left on the ice that he started his shift with at 4-on-4 on Saturday. He made some bad decisions, but I think one of the reasons why the benching is so significant is this is something Paul Maurice and Mark Scheifele have been working on. This is something that they have addressed, the idea that shift length is an issue for him. And you heard Paul Maurice praising Blake Wheeler for setting the example earlier this season. There's a reason for that. Mark Scheifele is 9th amongst NHL forwards in terms of average shift length of 5-on-5. That's something they're thinking about. This is something that is important to them, that he does that the right way and he plays his back pressure the right way as well. And at the end of 90 seconds, I agree with the benching. 2 opportunities to change. One of them turned into a horrible giveaway while he put Neil Pionk in a bad position inside the blue line. His back check there was wishful, but Kyle Connor bailed him out. Puck ends up on Mark Scheifele's stick again, joins Kyle Connor in that rush. And his stride, I was looking for this on the video. Him on that line change, that means that Pierre-Luc Dubois cannot get back into the play. I was looking for his last stride pointed towards the Winnipeg Jets bench. You have to rewind the tape further than that. His last stride is joining the rush inside Toronto's blue line. He pushes towards the net and then curls at the net, around the net, off the ice. Pierre-Luc Dubois gets the minus, never had a prayer at making an impact on that play. And it's a whole series of, I'm going to try to put this team on my back. I'm going to make that special play that is just a series of bad decisions. And I think he was full value for the benching. I'm glad that Paul Maurice used that trump card.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting in that, you know, there's plenty of times where something like this card could have been played before. But again, as a head coach, especially with the star player of Mark Scheifele's caliber here in Winnipeg, I mean, you can't be doing it all the time. I mean, at a certain point, there's the law of diminishing returns. And I think there's also personalities you're massaging and all that. To me, Murat, what this did with 10 games left, regardless of what had happened in the last few games. I mean, this wasn't all, well, you know, if they'd won the 2 games going into Saturday night, they'd do that. This is a specific challenge to Scheifele to be better, to do the things that they've been working on, that they need, that they ask for from every player on the hockey club. And I guess the other thing, Murat, is with the timing in it, is that it's a direct challenge to get Mark up to where the team needs him to be. Because, I mean, we can talk about a number of important players, and Connor Hellebuyck's at the top of that list, but it's hard to imagine the Winnipeg Jets having any success in the playoffs if they don't have the best version of Mark Scheifele in both ends of the hockey rink.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully that comes out in this criticism as well, and in what I write about Mark Scheifele as well. This is an all-world offensive talent. This is a player with the ability to control the game at both ends when he's on in that way. And for this, you talked about timing when it came to the injuries as well. This is great timing. Not only was it Hockey Night in Canada, prime time, all that sort of stuff, but there's just enough time left in this regular season such that if there's a message being sent to Mark Scheifele, which there is, and there's a way for him to improve his game, which there is, there's time for him to round into form and to show and demonstrate that he's doing the right things down the stretch as well. Because like you say, he does those things, add that to the offense. Okay, this is a special hockey player that you're talking about. Excuse me, a leader on the team as well. And as much as I like to think in trends, in aggregates, and stuff you can really extrapolate from, 200 minutes as a sample size, all that sort of stuff. When you get down to the playoffs, if you spot a team one freebie, like that goal was, or like that stanchion goal was in on Connor Hellebuyck as well, one freebie can change a game, which can change a series, right? So there is a level of not perfection, but your best version of yourself that I think needs to be there in the playoffs. And when that player is Mark Scheifele, you can sink or swim with how well he plays.
Well, and Murat, I mean, the other thing is that, and listen, to go over, and I sort of alluded to this before, I mean, there are times if you really want to nitpick of a shift that went too long or maybe a bit of a lazy back check or whatever. I mean, there were times over the course of this year, despite the improvement, that if Maurice really wanted to go and make an example or make a statement, he could have done it. But, and I think this goes back to, I mean, there'll be guys that'll have bad shifts. They'll make bad plays or whatever. But if, and Maurice mentioned it afterwards. I believe on Saturday night he said, sometimes Mark's competitiveness gets the better of him. And I really took that to be, we know how much he likes to measure himself against the likes of Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. And, to extend those shifts, try to do maybe a little bit too much. And certainly part of that was staying on too long and ended up being a negative for the hockey club. There's sure as hell one way you can let everybody on the team know that you're serious about sticking to this is by doing exactly what Paul Maurice did on Saturday night. I mean, it's certainly first and foremost a message to Scheifele, but I think we heard it from a number of players, including Connor Hellebuyck after the game, saying, I mean, it just goes to show, I believe his quote was, no one is safe. I mean, you have to buy in. You have to do what is asked of every player on the team to get out there. And to me, that's, I think the timing was good for it. And I think it's a very important message to, let's just say, reinforce to the members of the Winnipeg Jets at such an important time.
Well, absolutely. I'm curious to know what the takes are around the internet and the world about what exactly that quote means. I mean, that he's a competitive guy and it got the best of him. I took it the same way that you did. I just thought this was a player who thought the game was on the line. Winnipeg was trailing 2-1, 4-on-4 is an opportunity, and he wanted to do something special. He was seeing headlines. He was seeing Winnipeg come back into that game. And I didn't even go as far as, well, hey, as a matter of fact, he took that opening faceoff against Austin Matthews, one of those players he's trying to prove himself against. Now, when it comes to the thought of sending that message to everybody, what do you think of this? Like, for me, that's one of those myths. No one player is bigger than the team. That is 100% true. You need that. For me, I get that star players are held to a different standard sometimes. They can, you can be a little more flexible with them. But for me, that means so much. If you're holding Mark Scheifele accountable to his performance or his decision-making, or you're not doing that, to me, that sends a message down to every last single player, because you look at players with status and the examples that they set, you want him with his status, with his talent, setting the example that you want everybody to do. For me, that's one of those myth equals reality moments where everything comes together, and I agree with what you said on it.
All right, Murat of The Athletic with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, discussing all the stories coming out of the weekend and into tonight's tilt with the Edmonton Oilers. So we heard from both Scheifele and Maurice today. We heard from Maurice after the game. We did not hear from Scheifele, but he did speak today following the morning skate. So Maurice discussed their conversations as necessary, constructive, and over. And Mark Scheifele, for his part, said that he didn't agree with it, and he was pissed off about it. And, much like we heard from Connor Hellebuck, who talked about how he didn't agree about getting yanked in game 1 of the series, Scheifele was honest about it and came forth. And, I certainly don't take anything from that. I mean, I think he should be pissed off about it. I mean, it wasn't a great moment for him. It's a tough look. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about it. And, to have it happen in an important game on Hockey Night in Canada at this point in the season is certainly not what you want. That being said, I guess we'll really see the proof of it tonight when he gets back out there and how he plays. But you were there today on the call. I mean, what were your thoughts on how both the player and the coach handled the lines of questioning about what happened on Saturday that, of course, everyone was talking about?
Well, for me, Mark Scheifele says he's pissed off, and good. Message received if he's pissed off by that, by all means. If he doesn't agree with it, I also, for me, interpret that that's good. Show your fire, show your competitiveness, all those sorts of things. There is an angle that you might look at it and say, well, okay, if he's publicly disagreeing with the coach, does that mean that there's conflict there over this issue? I don't see it. I see that just as, a player wanting to be there on that big stage. Scheifele says he disagrees completely with it. He disagrees with the magnitude of the situation. And I think for me, that's a message that the message was sent and received. And maybe Scheifele doesn't agree, like he says that he doesn't agree. Maybe it pisses him off. Maybe he continues to think that Paul Maurice was wrong about it. But for me, that's exactly why Paul Maurice chooses that time and that magnitude of situation. If it's at the end of a game that Winnipeg is out of, nobody notices. But in the middle of the second period, with the game in reach, with the power play coming up, we notice it. We're talking about it. We're going to talk about it for a while, especially to see what kind of response he has. Mark Scheifele clearly notices. I think that when you talk about this is not a move that Paul Maurice goes to often. As a matter of fact, there's a line of thinking that says that in a less obvious way, you should go to this well more often, depending on what the goals are. But Paul Maurice is not John Tortorella. He's not carving Mark Scheifele. He says they're personal, they're private, it's done. And I don't know. I think I tried to present both sides there, like this idea that maybe there's a conflict there and it's going to last. I don't think that that's the case. I think it's just a player who's upset. He was willing to say pissed off, which, as we know, is plenty of language from Mark Scheifele. And then we see what he does with it, and it doesn't become a long-term thing.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Scheifele saying he's pissed off is like, a regular hockey player dropping 20 F-bombs in a presser. I mean, that was extreme. That was extreme for Mark. Now, all that being said, Murat, we've got a game tonight, and, things are going to look different. We know Adam Lowry's out. Now you also take out Nikolaj Ehlers, which complicates things. But focusing on Scheifele for a minute, he is going to be out there, at least from what it looked like from the morning skate, playing in the middle of Copp and Appleton. which is a very interesting line. It leaves Dubois playing with Connor and Wheeler, and Stastny with Vesalainen, who I mentioned earlier, is into the lineup along with Perreault, and then the fourth line of Hark, Thompson, and Lewis. When I saw this, I was very interested. I'm trying to thinking about, okay, now what is he thinking about? What are the matchups going to be? Are these going to be the guys that are going to be playing against McDavid? Will it be the Dubois line? Will they mix it up through all three? And it got me thinking to when Patrik Laine was struggling. And you remember when Maurice put Laine on the line with Lowry? And I believe it was Kopp at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And when asked about it, he sort of said he wanted him to get used to playing with those guys, to play that style, to improve himself. I mean, when I look at what Kopp and Appleton have done all year, they have been demons on the forecheck. They've been part of a very, very effective shutdown checking line, and have also chipped in offensively as well. Do you see the similarities of that move with Laine to Lowry and what they were looking to get out of Laine to potentially what Paul Maurice wants to see from Mark Scheifele tonight when they go up against the Edmonton Oilers?
I think that's a great read. And we were talking about this just before I came on as well. I think that's a great read. It's not what occurred to me initially. My first read was Appleton and Kopp are going to compensate for Scheifele's, his pure offense game. And if there are some lapses against the NHL's best, whether it's Draisaitl or McDavid, I think they're on separate lines tonight. Well, then great, you have those wingers available, and that will help. But Paul Maurice has gone to that well before. You have to play like these guys, or take the aspect that these guys do well and build it into your own game as well. It'll be a set an example sort of thing from Kopp and Appleton. So I think that there's something there. I think that's worth thinking about in terms of this. It's also clear to me that Scheifele's on the second line. And I have never thought that before. My default is to read a Winnipeg Jets lineup, and no matter who writes it how, if Scheifele's on there, I assume he's the first line center. But knowing Paul Maurice as we do, Kyle Connor and Blake Wheeler are your top line wingers, pardon me. So Pierre-Luc Dubois is the default top center on the Winnipeg Jets today. And I think that sends a message as well. Because Pierre-Luc Dubois, yeah, he has one more year on this RFA contract, but he's under team control. Everything goes well. He's a Winnipeg Jet for a long time. Dubois and Scheifele are your top two centers. And if you have somebody like Dubois who you can go to in a moment like this and say, hey, play with the best wingers, play that two-way game, it doesn't have to be Mark. Well, for me, I think that sends a double message of Mark Scheifele play with that edge of Kopp and Appleton. But also, there's another guy out there who can do that job.
Well, and you know, it's great you brought that up, because it's exactly where I was going. I think that if anything, the possibility to make moves like this is also not coincidental that Dubois had two of his most engaged, effective in many ways performances, at the time when things are ramping up against the team that, they're going to have to beat if they want to make it through the North Division playoffs. I think a lot of this is about Scheifele and about what happened on the weekend, but I will offer that the play of Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think, is giving Paul Maurice a lot more confidence that he can play in big situations against tough matchups. And to be honest, I think that's what the Jets were hoping for when they traded for him.
Yeah, he's rounding out into that form that you might expect from him. I always wonder about this. I mean, about the idea, yes, absolutely. You watch with your eyes. Stretch run hockey is different than first week of the regular season hockey. Playoff hockey is different. Another thing yet. And we had to sort of watch Nick Ehlers, for example, a great gifted player. I'm not going to say figure out how to play in the playoffs, because I think he was more effective than anyone seemed to be giving him credit for early on, even when the points weren't going in. But to use his talent to find ways to exploit his own skills as best as possible. Pierre-Luc Dubois already has that track record in a short, small sample size of dominating the Toronto Maple Leafs last summer. And that was a big step forward for him at his size, the fact that he can play a power forward role as a center, he can play a straight line speed game, lay the body, win that battle, protect the puck on the wall. It seems to me it's a tailor-made game for the playoffs. And whether it's a factor of him needing time to ramp up because of quarantine, because of his injury, because he's adapting to a new team, or the fact that the style of play is beginning to favor a guy of his size and strength, it seems to me that Paul Maurice is right to point to him as a strength right now. And if this is what we're getting, and it's going to build from here because he's a young guy getting used to a new team, well then, hey, we might see a new most effective center down the stretch and in the playoffs from Winnipeg.
Murat, one of the other interesting looks from this morning was a couple new power play variations, and a big part of that is Nikolaj Ehlers being out. But we have I'll ask you this. So we've got Scheifele with Appleton, Wheeler, Stastny, and Pionk, and then the other group, Connor, Dubois, Perreault, Morrissey, and Andrew Kopp. What were the more significant changes for you? I mean, someone's going in because Ehlers isn't there. What I found interesting is that we're seeing Neil Pionk on with the guys that are traditionally on that PP1 unit, specifically Stastny, Wheeler, and 55.
Yeah, it's so funny how injuries seem to be a motivator for some of the things that fans can sometimes be clamoring for all year long, because Neil Pionk has been Winnipeg's most effective defenseman on the power play this year. I don't think that there's a question of that. Now, I know that the Jets liked having a left shot Josh Morrissey on the top unit prior to this, but with a little bit of the shifting that we're seeing happen, Neil Pionk gets that opportunity. So I think that we're going to see a new look and a new structure from them as well. I mean, handedness matters, especially when you're playing from the relative standstill of a power play and you have a little bit more control over the routes that the puck takes. So that's going to be an interesting one just to see how they play in that group. And then the other thing for me is that Kyle Connor, your most dangerous available shooter now, unless it's Mark Scheifele, depending on your perspective or where that shot's coming from, is now not necessarily going to get those prime minutes as well. So I mean, power play 1, power play 2, does the debate still linger on? I'm not sure. I think the thing I'll be looking for most is not whose name is on the board necessarily, so much as how these new handedness setup groups operate and where they move the puck and why.
Murat, coming out of the game on Saturday, what is the better rivalry, Ehlers versus Thornton or Hellebuck versus the Stanchions?
Oh, my goodness. Well,
it's lopsided, unfortunately. It's very lopsided between Hellebuck and the Stanchions. I think that's 4 times this year that's happened. I mean, it doesn't seem possible. And listen, I have to admit that is somewhat bad luck. I know people get all crazy from him because the strength of his game is not playing the puck. But I mean, that's a routine play that happens a number of times every game. But man, it's come at some very inopportune times for the Winnipeg Jets, maybe no more so than Saturday night.
Well, yeah, I mean, a minute ago I was talking about giving teams freebies. You do that once in the playoffs, it changes the game, it changes the series, just like we were talking about with that 4-on-4 goal. I don't know what to think. First of all, the first thing that comes to my mind is that the best thing I saw on the internet all week was somebody putting Joe Thornton to the Grandpa Simpson.
Was that good?
My favorite thing that I've seen. I just couldn't help but cackle. Couldn't help it.
Laughed so hard.
And it's funny, I think the Stanchion and Nick Ehlers might have said the same amount of words in response to that, when Thornton's barking away. So I don't know. I by default think that a play like that's bullshit luck. It happens. You suck it up. You deal with it. And the fact that it's happened a few extra times to Connor Hellebuck, well, it's one of those things you got to zoom out and try to stay calm about, despite how awful and ugly that it looks. At the same time, there's got to be a way to start really digging deep and evaluating, well, okay, the ideal play there is goaltender leaves the net, stops the puck, sets up the breakout, leaves it for somebody, makes it easier. Can we quantify how much that genuinely helps? Because not only is that a case in Connor Hellebuck's life, he's not the world's best puck handler, but certainly he stops a puck every now and again and sets up things. Teams clearly prefer to play that way. It reminds me, this popped into my head, I don't know if this is a non sequitur, but is Martin Brodeur one of the best goaltenders to ever play argument? People always cite he played the puck. I'm like, how many goals does that create for him? How many does it shut down? We don't know the number to that, I don't think. And so is there value to Connor Hellebuck leaving the net and making that play knowing that most of the time the bullshit luck isn't going to happen? Or do we have to accept a world in which can we make a case for it mathematically that, hey, what he creates by playing the puck well isn't worth any of this grief that they go through every time that something like this happens? I don't know the answer.
Hey, by the way, we've got almost 400 people in here. It's great to have everyone here. Do us a favor, hit that like button. It's the thumbs up. You might have to close the chat to do it, but we really appreciate you doing that. And if you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button. Make sure you do that so you can hang out with us every day at 1 p.m. when we go live. Let's bring it to tonight, Murat. We know where the club is right now. I think, any hopes of first place probably were pretty much extinguished on Saturday night with the regulation loss. What are you looking for from the Winnipeg Jets tonight? And how important are these two games against Edmonton, considering the lack of success they've had against the Oilers in the last 4 times they've gone against them?
Yeah, I think Winnipeg needs to find a way to beat the Edmonton Oilers. And I don't necessarily know that means hyper-focusing on McDavid and Draisaitl, as we so often do, and how are you going to handle them? What are the matchups going to be? I think the biggest thing that I found missing from Winnipeg's game against Edmonton the last time around, and Edmonton clearly seems to have the Jets' number, is Winnipeg's offense. There's a transition style of offense, and off the rush, on the fly style of offense, Winnipeg has had a ton of success with this season. Paul Maurice has been talking about lately how that disappears at this time of year, that they need to grind it out a little bit more, that any team that relies on rush offense is going to suffer as teams tighten up, as the back pressure is always there, as that F3 is always picked up. And I think that there's some truth to that. At the same time, I thought Edmonton did an exceptional job of just collapsing 5 guys to the middle of the ice, shutting down what Winnipeg likes in terms of that transition. And the Jets have struggled on offense when it comes to in-zone setup, generate chances from the middle, come off the wall, beat players one-on-one, create little mismatches, those sorts of offensive plays this season. And if that's exactly what they're going to go up against, I don't know if it matters if Connor McDavid scores a goal or not. I mean, Winnipeg needs to generate. They can't win 0-0 or 1-0 as well. So they need to solve that, and that's what I'm looking for this week.
You know what? I think one of the most interesting things that'll happen all night will be on the opening faceoff. Now, we understand that Draisaitl and McDavid are on separate lines right now. Draisaitl is back with Nuge and Yamamoto, Kahun and Puljujarvi along with Connor McDavid. But let's just assume that McDavid's the number one problem and the number one focus of the Winnipeg Jets when it comes to shutting down the Edmonton Oilers. Dave Tippett signs his lineup card. Here you go, Paul. 97 there at center. You're starting off against that line. Who's first over the bench for the Winnipeg Jets? Is it Scheifele along with Kopp and Appleton? Here's your challenge, guys. Go for it. Or is it Pierre-Luc Dubois with Blake Wheeler and Kyle Connor? What would at least we would perceive as the quote-unquote top line going into tonight's game with the current roster?
Interestingly enough, in terms of 100% responsibility all over the ice, I would default to Paul Stastny. I don't think that that's what's going to happen with Christian Vesalainen presumed to be lining up on his wing. So that's not the answer, but he's who I think of in this situation, especially if you have Matthew Perreault available. Because for me, I don't think you're going to beat McDavid in terms of in-zone defense. I don't think that that daring him to beat you and then having the best defensive player is necessarily how it's going to work. If Winnipeg had the option to simply spend as much time on the other end of the ice as possible, I think that's how you get the best out of that matchup. Don't know if I'm right, but that's how I see it. So for me, now I look to, okay, which one of those lines is going to be able to do it? And honestly, I go to Mark Scheifele with Kopp and Appleton as his wingers, not necessarily because Scheifele is that two-way stalwart, but because I think he has a fire under his ass tonight, because he has Winnipeg's best defensive winger on his line, and because Mason Appleton has shown moments of being able to really control where the game gets played as well. I know that Wheeler and Connor are Winnipeg's best wingers in this sort of situation, but I'm not rating their impact in terms of playing in the zone so dominantly that that's your answer against McDavid. So I say, Scheifele, there's a fire under your ass. You've got that pressure that Paul Maurice has put on you. I think that he would be who I give the opportunity to show he can do what Winnipeg needs him to do.
One thing, assuming these lines stay together, with Tippett having split up Draisaitl and McDavid, regardless, when that line comes out, they're going to be going up against a pretty high-powered line. And an elite center, regardless on either side. So the challenge is going to be there. How Maurice rolls the lines, I think, will be something we'll pay attention to quickly, but I'm not sure it really matters, to be honest. What Maurice is wanting to get out of Scheifele in that pairing, along with Kopp and Appleton, they'll have plenty of opportunity, I guess is what I'm saying tonight, considering the opposition.
Yeah, he could roll him. He could say that, I don't give a heck. Why is that the word? I don't give a crap about what the matchups actually are. There's a good center on every line. We're going to roll them. And Scheifele's still going to spend an inordinate amount of time against McDavid and Draisaitl if that's how it goes. So whatever matchup that you look at. There's no way around it. I mean, those guys play half the game, maybe more than that between the two of them on different lines. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for everybody involved to show that they can or can't play the game they need to.
I know you've been paying attention to what's going on with the Manitoba Moose. And by the way, we should give Eric Comrie a big congratulations. One of the two great guys in sports, set the Moose all-time wins record in net on the weekend. But my God, Cole Perfetti is absolutely on fire right now. We could not finish having this conversation about all things going on with the Jets without mentioning Perfetti. 4 goals, 7 assists in the last 5 games. I never thought for a second, and I'm still not thinking that he really would be a possibility, but I will say, if a guy like Nikolaj Ehlers was going to be out long-term, and you have a young man putting up points the way he is right now in the American Hockey League, I have a feeling they might give it a thought, if they were put in that situation, Murat. What do you think?
Man, that's fascinating. That is fascinating because I look at, Christian Vesalainen getting his first opportunity in a while. You look at Jansen Harkins not getting a whole lot of minutes or opportunity either. But so the idea that Cole Perfetti would pass them and get, into a game or two for a coach that, really does prefer to play the veterans would be a shock to me. I would look at that as a surprise. And I would look at I cheer for the storyline because it would be the most interesting thing available, but I'm not sure that I necessarily expect it. On the other hand, you just laid it out. 11 points in 5 games. He's 19 years old. He turned it on January 1st. When you look at guys like this, my rule of thumb acquired years ago from somebody's study of AHL data, if a guy can hit roughly a point per game in the AHL at 20 years old, you're looking at a top 6 forward in the future. That's not hard or fast. That's not a guarantee. You have Cole Perfetti doing 2 points per game over this stretch at 19 years old. Yes, we have that player in our future. Obviously, he's not going to score 2 points a game for the entirety of the season, but he has arrived. This is not straight power play offense. There's 5-on-5 offense here as well. The game is he's processing the game at a rate where he can deliver the offense sort of no matter what he's looking at. He can slow the game down the way that he likes to. This is a great sign. I mean, if you want to reward him with that game or two, that NHL salary, great. You know what? Now I just want to see it. That's it. I think Paul Maurice is a veterans coach, but I want to see it because just think of the gifts.
Well, I really think that there's a bunch of things that would have to happen, and most of those things would not be good overall for the Winnipeg Jets, like we heard this morning with Nikolaj Ehlers being out of the lineup. But I will say this. It's been a while since we've had a young guy come in and perform the way Perfetti has in the American Hockey League. I mean, this is not like OHL numbers. This guy's getting used to playing pro hockey and doing it against good competition and doing it against men, which is always the key word when we're talking about these young players and moving up. And it certainly is fascinating. Well, no shortage of topics today to get to with you, my friend. We went a little long, so everyone wants to maybe get a nice bass solo out of you before you leave, but we'll do that on another show at some point. But I got to tell you, the piece, if you have not read this already, folks, and listen, if you haven't already subscribed to The Athletic, what are you waiting for? The piece on Scheifele was fair. It was detailed, and I thought you did a great job, particularly of breaking down what was the breaking point for Coach Paul Maurice, which led to one of the bigger stories we're going to have around this hockey club in a long time. And it certainly sets up a fascinating scenario for an 8 o'clock puck drop tonight against the Oilers.
Well, thanks for the kind words. Pleasure as always. And yeah, I cannot wait to see how they bounce back from this.
Let's do this again soon, buddy. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And as always, the people in the chat and listening on the podcast later appreciate you doing it as well.
Beauty. Thanks, Huss. Thanks, Revo.
Great stuff. There is Murat Atesh of The Athletic. Just a great conversation. I could have gone an hour or two with Murat, but it's game day. He's got a lot of stuff to do. We appreciate him joining us as always, and certainly great comments in the chat from Murat's appearance. It's a Murat Monday, if you will, here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. All right, game night tonight. Why not get that great game day deal from Boston Pizza, the spicy pierogi pizza, the meteor pizza, 24 case of wings, or I might suggest you call your shot with Boston Pizza and Molson. Try those pizza pairs, any pizza pizza flights. There's actually not a pair because there's 3 pizzas, 3 dips, and you'll also get a chance to Call your shot, win a Instant Boston Pizza gift card, a custom-made outdoor rink for next year in the backyard, or even a VIP NHL experience. That's dine-in, takeout, or delivery at all Boston Pizzas with the pizza flights or any Molson product. And a shout out to Big Nick and Nikki over at the Nick and Nikki DQs, Niverville, Polo Park, DQ Northgate, and DQ St. Anne's. As I mentioned, a new promo from Nick and Nikki at all 4 stores, 2 for $5 treat nights after 8 p.m., 2 medium cones, dip cones, or 2 medium sundaes. It's 7 days a week after 8 p.m. And again, if you've got a big birthday or a celebration coming up, I know you can't have a lot of people over, but you can make it that much more special with a DQ cake. Give them a follow. And by the way, they've put all the accounts of the 4 stores together into one at DQ Manitoba. Hit them up on Instagram, and I think they'll even take a cake order right through the gram. All right, let's get Remis back in here. Lots to unpack after our conversation with Murat going into this game tonight against the Edmonton Oilers. I know you've been paying close attention to the chat. We've got a ton of people in here today. Reem, fill me in on what the people have been saying as we spoke with Murat, other than wanting him to drop a nasty bass solo.
Yeah, now we're wondering, I mean, Murat's face after you brought up the bass solo, he was like, what? And some people are speculating if it's a prop and whether or not he can actually play. So I have no idea, but it is a good prop. I know Gary was tweeting out, Murat's got the full hipster look, toque, beard, guitar. So, but a few of the comments in chat, we were just talking about Cole Perfetti. A lot of people seem to think Maurice would, because of his preference for veterans, he would probably play Perfetti, start him on the 4th line, maybe get him up to the 1st line in a couple of years. That was a lot of people going there. But, I mean, if you're scoring that at the AHL and the Moose are playing right now 0-0, you maybe wonder if they do give him a game at the end of the year, depending on what the team situation is, or a game towards the end, to say, hey, you've had an awesome season. We know you're young player. This is your first pro season, but you've earned this. Like, you're tearing it up here at the AHL. I mean, put him in. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, listen, I mean, healthy. I mean, if Adam Lowry's good to go and Nikolaj Ehlers is good to go, I mean, I don't think there's a spot right now for Cole Perfetti, as much as we'd love to see what he could do. But I have to admit, I got thinking about it this morning. When you take a player like Ehlers and what he does for the Winnipeg Jets and the offense he provides to the club out of the lineup, and listen, Vesalainen is going to have a huge opportunity tonight to come in and show that, he was a first rounder for a reason, and make the most of playing not on the 4th line, but with a couple really talented players in Paul Stastny and Matthew Perreault. But I can't help but think that if it did come down to it in an important game or a playoff game where Nikolaj Ehlers was not available and, they're really concerned about that offense, that maybe, just maybe, that's a chance for Perfetti to come in and, kind of go sink or swim. Because you're right. We have seen in the past younger players come in and, get 5 or 6 minutes on the 4th line. Putting Cole Perfetti with Trevor Lewis and Nate Thompson is not going to be the answer, I think, for the player or the team. And again, I'm not suggesting that I'm expecting this anytime soon. It's just that for the first time all season long, we're dealing with some pretty significant injuries to the Winnipeg Jets. And as I said, they're hopeful that Nikolaj Ehlers is back for the playoffs. You just wonder what this lineup would look without Ehlers, and considering how incredibly hot Perfetti has been at the American Hockey League level, if all of a sudden he's sort of barged into the conversation for a call-up and potentially playing time, if need be, if a player like Ehlers is out going into the postseason.
Yeah, one thing they like to do is they like to replace, when a guy comes out with injury, they'll replace him with a similar player. So I think if Morrissey were out, maybe they would bring in a Heinola. They are kind of similar in that way. So if Ehlers is out and, it's down the road and you need some offense, maybe put Perfetti in a spot. I mean, they're both, smallerish guys who have speed. We have all seen the highlight last week of him, skating the length of the ice and, going across the crease for a goal. I mean, it's incredible to watch. The Moose are
200-foot player.
Yeah, exactly. 200. That's a new meaning of 200-foot player. The Moose are playing right now, though, Huss. It's tied 0-0. So we are kind of keeping an eye on that. They're playing, who are they playing? Stockton Heat. So, where he's been scoring goals, he's been putting up points. So, This is the first time in a while we've had like a big major scoring prospect on the Moose. I guess Roslovic and Connor would probably be the last ones.
Yeah, I mean, no, this team has not been synonymous with offense over the last couple seasons since those guys graduated. And, part of it is the, just the ebbs and flows of the AHL when you have top prospects playing there, when you have them up with a big club. When you've traded away your first pick, you might not have that, elite talent coming in for a year or two. All of that has been part of the Jets' history for the last 5 years or so. As I mentioned with Murat, what a great day for Eric Comrie on the weekend. And, we've talked to him a number of times back on Pembina Highway, and we'll look to have him on the program sometime soon. He did jump on with Kenny and Rennie after the Saturday night game to talk about it a little bit. But man, this guy really has made, a home here, if you will. I know he's a California kid, although originally Canadian. But man, he's been such a good fit here in Manitoba. And you see Remis, the crazy path that he's taken, being claimed on waivers, bouncing around a few teams, and then finally coming back here. And, listen, it really sucks that, a milestone like that for the Manitoba Moose wasn't done in front of 8,800 at Bell MTS Place in a well-attended game that really got to celebrate Eric Comrie's contributions, but certainly well-deserved, even if the game was played at the Iceplex in front of no fans. A win's a win, and he's got more than anyone in Moose history.
Yeah, passing Corey Schneider, who is a Moose legend himself. And Eric's, he's always been great to talk to, always very open about what's going on. We know he loves, I'll never forget when he was in studio and you brought up fantasy football with him. His eyes lit up. He got so excited talking about, I don't think they have a big league, like Keeper League or something. He got very excited talking about that. So he's always been so nice and so gracious with his time.
He's one of us. One of us, Reem.
Yeah, I know. So, I'm happy for him. Moose goal. And he's had, it's funny, he's had like a number of different stints with the Moose. We said, being waived and then claimed and then picked up again by the Moose. Happened this year, but it also happened, in previous seasons as well. So, good for him. He's a great guy. And there he is, Manitoba Moose all-time leading wins goalie.
Hey, let me hit you with a couple of and you know what, in the chat as well, I would love to hear what you guys think about the question that I asked Murat Atesh. So Connor McDavid's starting at center with his line from Dave Tippett. Who's Maurice putting out there first? Is it going to be Scheifele going head-to-head with McDavid along with Kopp and Appleton? Or is it the Pierre-Luc Dubois line with Connor and Blake Wheeler? Or is it potentially Paul Stastny with Vesalainen and Matthew Perreault? I don't think the latter would be the case, just considering it's Vesalainen's first game. But, to me, Rian, this is I'm going to be sitting there waiting to see what the lineup card says, because I think it's an amazing challenge for Mark Scheifele considering what happened on Saturday. And I certainly do think that playing with the likes of Appleton and Kopp can only help him when it comes to, that tenacity that I think Paul Maurice is looking for, and, that commitment in both ends that you absolutely need to have if you're going up against Connor McDavid.
I don't know. I was going to say, a lot of people in chat are saying Dubois line, Dubois, Connor, Wheeler, but I don't know. I think I got to go Scheifele line. I think Scheifele loves that competition against Connor McDavid. I know it hasn't worked in the past at times, but he's now with, two pretty responsible wingers, and those guys are, traditionally on this team, they've been the checking line. So I think you go there. But then that leads you to think, okay, do they end up going, switching up and keep going back to Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler, and then going to Dubois, Appleton, Lowry? If you really want to make a shutdown line, wouldn't you do that? So I don't think, these are new lines. Maybe we'll go back to Old Faithful in Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler, but I think I would start off with the Scheifele line right now. Show Scheifele that you trust him. And,
I don't know if we're going back to Old Faithful anytime soon.
You think it's done?
Listen, never say never.
Yeah.
This could be a freezing cold take by the second period. Who knows? But I just think that, with the way that things went on Saturday, with the results of these last couple games, and with the moves that he has made today, especially with Ehlers not being in the lineup, I think this does sort of indicate that, well, first of all, it definitely indicates that there's a lot more confidence in Pierre-Luc Dubois and his game and where it is right now, especially for what's going to be needed going up against these top teams. And, that is what he needs to get out of Mark Scheifele. And I think he's certainly going to get a boost, in that respect, playing with Kopp and Appleton. I think it'll be less about getting the points and less about offense, more about playing a good, strong 200-foot game and eliminating those chances. And I'll tell you what, I think it could be a great thing for Mark Scheifele if they can go out, if he can have some success playing with those guys over the next couple games. And it doesn't even need to be, a couple goals or a big point output. I'll tell you what, I think it's a win for the Winnipeg Jets if those guys in that matchup, can skate evenly at 5-on-5 with Connor McDavid or potentially the Draisaitl line, who, certainly packs a punch along with the Nuge and Yamamoto.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of their, the Oilers' depth lines, and I think that's, where you'd like to see the Jets take advantage of the Oilers. I mean, we've been saying this for a while. I mean, look at who's on their bottom six, and even with this injury-depleted Jets team, I mean, I'm going to take Paul Stastny as your third-line center over whoever Edmonton decides to throw out there. So, you want to see Christian Vesalainen get a chance to, produce some offense. Matthew Perreault's done great in his limited time. So, maybe that line steps up and does be, is another solid contributor, as we've seen from the third lines of the past. We do have the Oilers lines scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. So.
Yeah, Shore, McLeod, and Archibald, and Neil Haas and Chasen aren't really scaring anybody, I don't think. Yeah, and that speaks to, the Achilles heel of the Oilers, of course, is just the fact that they are so top heavy and so much relies on the shoulders of those top players. Speaking of the Oilers, though, we are going to see an old familiar face tonight, Reem. Guess who's back? Dmitry Kulikov. He's going to be on the Oiler blue line tonight. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in.
Yeah, his first game with them paired with Mr. 1-for-1, Adam Larson. And we'll see. I mean, Kulikov, he was a solid guy. It took you a while to get that one. Kulikov, he's been a solid player this year for New Jersey. He was 4th-round pick at the deadline. He probably knows the Jets pretty well. So, maybe when he's healthy, he's been all right. So, we'll see how that goes. Maybe the Jets, know how to exploit him. I don't know, but the Oilers kind of shore up their defense by getting Kulikov.
Eric Jorlison, I hope Kulikov sends us some free pizzas tonight. Maybe a spicy pierogi. Well, listen, whatever flavor they want to serve up, I'm sure the Jets would be more than willing to eat a few free pizzas if they're on the menu from the Edmonton Oilers tonight. Of course, Connor Hellebuck's back in net. One thing about Helly, Reem, that there was so much talk about Hellebuck going into Saturday night's game. All of that sort of got erased when Scheifele was benched in the second period, and we know what happened. I'll say one thing about Hellebuck's game, though. There was some real bad luck on that second goal. The first one, a little unfortunate with the missed push off, and Thornton got enough to get that wraparound around. But I will say we did see some vintage Hellebuck in that second and third period, keeping the Jets in the game, especially in the second when the Leafs were pretty much all over the home team.
You think the Bell MTS Place arena workers are like being extra, taking some extra close looks at the glass for tonight, maybe bringing out the magnifying glass? I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I mean, it's not all, the other ones have been in Montreal, but for it to happen to Hellebuck, you're like, again, like, is it even possible for him to get, I know it's a verb or it's a verb stanchioned. I wrote that in a tweet. Hellebuck on getting stanchioned. So, when he can see the pocket, it's coming at him. It's great, but it seems like the only a surefire way to beat him is try to ring it around the boards and hope for that bounce. So I don't know if Oilers are going to be testing out the glass in practice or what. We know he's good. I mean, I haven't wavered on what I think about him, but a couple tough ones here for the Jets. And I mean, I don't know how the guy keeps getting stanchioned over and over again here. It's crazy.
It's bad when it happens on the road. It's brutal when it happens at home. And the timing of that play could not have been worse. Well, no, actually, it could have been worse. It could have happened in the playoffs and not with 10 games left in the regular season when the team's pretty much got a spot all looked up. Okay, we've got to get to a few things. I know we basically talked Jets for the first hour and 10 minutes, which is not surprising considering everything that's happened around, but there was a few things that I wanted to get to. we mentioned the Moose, 5 wins in a row. They're playing right now 0-0. If Perfetti scores, we'll hit the goal horn before the end of the program.
I got the.
Keep an eye on.
I don't think it connects to AHL, but I'll check. I'll check that.
Well, we'll do a manual. We'll do a manual if we want to put that.
But
up.
that would be crazy if I could do it.
And congratulations to the Brandon Wheat Kings, who look like they're going to finish on top of the East Division in the Western Hockey League's 24-game bubble. 2 games left for the Winnipeg Ice this afternoon, an early game, a later game tomorrow, and we will check in with the Ice, hoping to have Coach Patrick talk about the season overall at some point this week. And again, we'll check up with Jake Heisinger. And of course, these will be Peyton Krebs' last 2 games with the Winnipeg Ice before I would imagine he'll presumably go to Vegas or Henderson, Nevada afterwards, but we'll find out on that going forward.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Henderson, did you see former Moose goalie Fred Brathwaite strapping up for
yes, Freddie?
And he was another Jets note. He was wearing his old Atlanta Thrashers mask. So 48 years old. Give a shout out to, he's a legend, Fred Brathwaite. He's working with Hockey Canada before, now with the goalie coach Henderson.
Freddie, I was working at the Moose when Freddie was playing for the Moose, and what a treat he was to be around. I mean, honest to God, one of the just truly great dudes, loved by everyone. And he's had a really interesting career once he got into coaching. And it was cool to see him put the pads back on just in case on the weekend out there for the Henderson Silver Knights. And speaking of...
Sorry, there was also another guy who almost strapped on the pads on the weekend, Artem Anisimov. Was good.
I sent you that picture. So Anisimov, I guess Matt Murray got hurt on the game on Saturday. They said he would not return. So the backup Hogarth goes in. They didn't have the emergency goalie. So who puts the pads on? Anisimov. And there was a great piece by the Sens of him in the full goalie equipment doing some of the moves. Kind of reminded me of when if you go in ball hockey and you're just sort of, okay, what do I do here? Just sort of feeling out the equipment a little bit. But anyways, good for the Sens that they didn't have to go to Anisimov in net. Although considering what they're playing for right now, that actually would have been a hilarious moment that I think everyone would have been here for.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Shohei Ohtani this year in baseball. I mean, he's a pitcher. He's hitting bombs. Like, will we ever see a two-way player in hockey, like a goalie who could go out? How crazy would that be? Or...
Well, you know what? All goalies, I heard Mike Vernon speaking the other day.
Goalies want to play out so bad.
They want to play out so bad. Like, the minute their careers are over and they get asked for pickup games, they're like, yeah, I'm in, but I'm not playing in net.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm done playing goal. You guys can use the pads if you want. We'll put somebody else in net. I'm not doing it anymore. So Vernon actually said that in practice, he would often put on out skates and go in and shoot on the other goalies in practice or in morning skates sometimes. So anyways, it was that was a funny little aside. Hey, speaking of the Flames, well, first off, I got to do our golf report for Breezy Bend. Course is back open, waiting list for next year. Find out more at breezybend.ca, Winnipeg's premier private course. When we talk golf, we always shout out Breezy here on this program, and a couple wild things coming out of the weekend. Maybe the Zurich Classic is always interesting. Wild finish with Louis Oosthuizen putting in the drink on 18, and the Aussies, Team Mullet, Mark Leishman, and Cam Smith getting the win. But the big story, and Remis brought up Henderson. It wasn't the Henderson Silver Knights. It was Brooke, the queen of Canadian golf, Brooke Henderson, getting another win on the LPGA Tour. She now has 10 titles in her career. She's the winningest Canadian golfer of all time, and one of the easiest people to cheer for, regardless of sex, regardless of sport. She's just an absolute treat, and I think makes every Canadian golf fan proud that she is representing the red and white. So congratulations to Brooke Henderson and the guys in the PGA Tour. We got the Valspar coming up. He'll hit that coming up. Reed Fowler is going to be with us on Wednesday. We'll pick Reed's brain a little bit on the golf and focus in on the upcoming NFL draft, which gets going on Thursday as well. Thanks again to Breezy Bend. Look them up at breezybend.ca. All right, we should get to the cool bet lines. And Remis, do we have a goal? Unmute your mic.
Here, let me fire this thing off. The Moose just scored us. Nathan Todd.
Okay.
Power play goal. His 9th of the season.
Beautiful. Let's make it 6 in a row for the Moose. And again, we were going to do it on a Perfetti goal, but I think the fact that we've got live hockey going on during the program, if the home team scores, they're getting the red light and the horn. So well done, Nathan Todd. Go Moose, go.
This thing's the best. Yeah, 1-0 in the second period.
It really is. All right, let's get to the lines for Cool Bet today. I had a good weekend. Some of my lock shop picks weren't too good. Big win, though, in the middle of Saturday night on the Hiroshima Toyo Carp on the Japanese League. That was a big win on the weekend. Missed out on the disc golf, but, man, had some good success in baseball. We'll talk about the baseball in a minute. But the lines tonight, listen, Oilers-Jets is a big game. Jets a very slight home favorite, -111. Edmonton is -105. But Remis, the other game that I'm most interested in, and to be honest, it'll be perfect, can watch this one heading into Winnipeg and Edmonton, is this game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Calgary Flames. Now, I was on 960 doing the show with the guys last Thursday, and it was coming out of that another embarrassing loss against the Ottawa Senators where they weren't very good. And that was coming off a regulation loss against the Montreal Canadiens. And it really looked like the Flames had absolutely let it all slip away. But back-to-back regulation wins against the Habs on Friday and Saturday have put them in a situation today, Reem, where the Flames are only 4 points back of the Habs. The Habs have one game in hand on Calgary, but with a win tonight in regulation, they would move to just 2 points back. And as I said to Pat Steinberg, I said, just you wait. They win this game, your entire timeline is going to be Flames fans just dropping the Undertaker gif, because if they do pull this off tonight, all of a sudden the race is on for that final playoff spot, and the Montreal Canadiens are going to be feeling the heat from behind.
Yeah, they've played one more game, the Flames, than Montreal, but 4 points back, and they were playing tonight. Seems like, Montreal hasn't figured out how to play the Flames. That's one of the few teams they can beat. They can't beat Ottawa, but when Flames and Montreal, they seem to have the advantage, so we'll see how it goes for them. We've been counting the Flames out for a bit, but maybe we spoke too soon. So the Undertaker gif, it could be coming out 5:30 start. Weird start time. I don't know why that is. I guess that's 4:30 in Calgary. I don't know who's setting these game times. Someone's asking why are the Jets at an 8 p.m. start. There's no fans. You can put the games on whenever you want. So
I guess it's probably TV. It probably has something to do with
Sportsnet.
Like they're going to put the games on either side, or they moved up the Calgary game earlier so they could broadcast both games. That's all I can
aren't they on the same
You're right. Yeah. It's not about the fans.
They might be on the same channel, right? Are they both on Sportsnet West? The Edmonton Calgary. Maybe it's something to do with that. And they're just like, we want them here, and they're like, yeah, sure, we can do whatever. So 7 p.m. start in Edmonton. Are saying, and this game's a 4:30 start in Calgary.
Now the Canucks not out of it either. I mean, per points percentage, they're actually ahead of Calgary right now. Problem with Vancouver is they've got 5 games in hand, but they're 8 points back, and they've got to win those games. So they'll look to do that tonight. They are -120 favorites at the Ottawa Senators. It's the series shifts over to the nation's capital. Sens a home favorite at +103. Other games tonight, Colorado at St. Louis. The Avs -164 favorites. Blues at +138. And Florida and Nashville. It's a big game for Nashville. Florida -128 at Nashville +108. So they're your Cool Bet daily lines. Check out the Winnipeg Sports Talk Twitter feed at Sports Talk WPG. We got a link there for a bonus code if you want to play with us on Cool Bet, Reem.
So Perfetti and Heinola with the assist on that Manitoba Moose goal by Nathan Todd on the power play.
The future is bright.
Yeah. You talk about your Cool Bet picks. I mean, you didn't have Anthony Hopkins winning Best Actor at the end of the Oscars last night? You didn't have any big Oscars?
Dude,
what was he paying? Do you know?
He was paying well over 10 to 1.
Wow.
Chadwick Boseman was -2,000.
Oh my God.
-2,000. So you'd have to bet $2,000 to win 100. Well, all you would have done was lose $2,000 on that. I mean, one of the bigger upsets in a long, long time. The only Oscar bet, I haven't watched a movie in years. The only Oscar bet I laid was Viola Davis to win Best Actress.
Did she?
And that was on a tip from Adnan Virk. And no, she didn't. I believe it was whatever the girl. I don't know the name. I just know she was plus 125.
I'll say this about the Oscars. I hadn't seen any of the movies. The only movie I saw on the list, I think, was Borat's subsequent movie film, which was excellent because she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. But
Are you serious? An
Yeah.
actress from Borat got an Oscar nomination?
Yes, she was incredible. His daughter, the girl who played his daughter, she was, yes, definite. Everyone saw it. She's like, oh, that's an Oscar. You could win an Oscar in a comedy. It's definitely possible. But I tuned in for, I think nothing was going on. I was like, yeah, I'll tune in with my wife. We watch it. It was awful. It was so boring. Some genius decided not to put a time limit on the speeches. That's never happening again. I think I turned it on twice and turned it off very, very quickly. And I mean, I hadn't seen any of the movies, so during a 3-hour show, maybe I could spend that 3 hours watching one of those movies that I've never seen.
Well, I'll tell you what, I certainly wasn't wasting any of my time watching these Hollywood types bloviate over each other and, give out the awards on movies that I've never seen. What I did do last night, Remis, well, first of all, I did check in on some of your stream, which was always entertaining. Folks, if you're on Twitch, check him out, Adam Remis.
Yeah, thank you.
But I watched another incredible baseball game last night. This Dodgers-Padres rivalry, I can't believe we were watching these games and it was April. I mean, this felt like October this entire weekend. You had the Kershaw loss in game number 1, Bauer coming back and getting bumped in game number 2, and then the matchup last night with the Dodgers up 7-1 in the 7th inning, and the Padres putting up 2-2-2, having the winning runs on third in the 9th inning, not getting it done, and then winning in the extra frame. Listen, I know there's a lot of people that, are still in hockey mode right now, but I got to tell you, if you are at all a baseball fan and you see the LA Dodgers and Slam Diego going head to head, PVR that thing, make sure you watch it because it's one of the best rivalries and the most fun sporting events right now when those two teams go head to head.
Yeah, and Fernando Tatis Jr., he's like the new superstar. I mean, Mike Trout, he's been the best player, but he kind of just goes about his business. He's pretty business-like. You wouldn't recognize him. Tatis, he's on the cover of MLB The Show. He's hitting multiple dingers, most notably off Trevor Bauer, and then covering his eye while rounding the bases, mocking Trevor Bauer, who pitched with one eye closed during spring training. And they asked Trevor Bauer about it, and full props to him. He's not getting pissed off. He's got to respect the game. He's not doing that. He's like, you know what? We need that kind of personality in the game. I'm not going to go and hit him the next time because he hit a home run off me. So I think, you see these guys recognize that you can't be drilling a guy because he hit a home run off you and he's celebrating. You got to embrace it. And I think some of these young players are putting baseball in the right direction.
Yeah, I couldn't stand Trevor Bauer for a long time. I thought he was full of himself. I didn't think that he was as good as I thought he sort of wrote checks that his mouth has wrote checks that he couldn't cash. Of course, there was the infamous drone incident, which bounced him out of the playoffs, fixing his drone and making him unable to pitch. But I've totally done a 180 on Trevor Bauer now. He's one of the most interesting guys in sports. If you've seen, and most of you are with us on YouTube right now, go check out Trevor Bauer's YouTube feed. He's doing vlogs, behind the scenes stuff throughout the season that in a lot of ways it's groundbreaking for a pro athlete. And I imagine when he went to LA, he said, by the way, I want to do this and I'm not signing unless you guys are cool with it. And they're cool with it. And it has been, it really is, I think, kind of the next level of content from pro sports that, you simply can't get anywhere else. But I'm with you. He likes that. He talks a lot of trash himself, and he'll let you know when he gets you out in a big way. But he stands up. And, he said guys that throw at dudes after giving up home runs are soft. And I agree wholeheartedly. Listen, I think this is great for the game. This rivalry is great for the game. And it's a good thing. Speaking of baseball, I got to give a shout out to the Royals. I might not have a chance to do this later on. Second best record in baseball, Reem. And both the Royals and the Jays helped me out big time. A little two-gamer yesterday afternoon. Both teams with shutouts. Royals are a great underdog story. But, man, how about the Blue Jays winning the series against the Tampa Bay Rays with more injuries? And yesterday, every Blue Jay fan freaked out when they saw the big Korean Hyunjin Ryu with what they referred to as a minor glute strain. Maybe he was activating the glutes too much, like Tiger Woods told us how to do back in the day. Anyways, the bullpen comes in and dominates Tampa. Huge win for the Blue Jays. And, man, they're getting contributions from so many players that, to be honest, at the start of the season, we wouldn't even expect them maybe to be in the lineup.
Yeah, and we were talking to Keegan Matheson at the start of the year, who said Ryu is their most important player just because they don't have the depth in the bullpen. But guys like Steven Matz and Robbie Ray have stepped up. We know their lineup is good, and the Blue Jays, they're not off to like a tremendous start, but we know it's a long season, and they're in there. They're third, 10-11. It could be. They're only 3 games back though of the Red Sox. So this was the year for the Blue Jays to make it into the playoffs. So we'll be keeping an eye on them as the season goes.
Yes, indeed. All right, so game tonight, 8 o'clock. We will check out that Flames-Habs game first. For everyone that's with us live right now on YouTube, hit that like button if you haven't already, please. But in the chat, I'd like some predictions for tonight's game. Did the Jets get back at it? Did they get back in the win column? Did they respond in the fashion that you Jet fans are hoping that you see? Or is this going to maybe take a little while to get out of as they go up against the Edmonton Oilers? So where are you on all that, Reem?
Well, one thing we got to get to before I touch on that, the Flames announced today a big injury, thanks to Chris for tweeting it at us. Noah Hanifin is done for the year, so that's a big blow for them on defense.
Definitely.
I've been here, so I haven't seen what their lines are going to be or who steps in. But that is a big blow for them. I don't know. As we talk about all year, how the Jets can't catch a break. No one's favoring them. They're the only team they can be favored against is Ottawa. I was looking at the lines, or at least yesterday, and this morning when I was putting them in, they're coming across the screen right now. Oh, okay, now it's minus 105 to minus 111. But before the Ehlers injury, the Jets were actually favored, and I was surprised. They haven't looked great the last couple of games. They're on a 3-game losing streak. So I guess ride with the Jets. You figure they can't lose 4 in a row, but things really seem to be spiraling, and Edmonton has their number this year. But you have to think one of these games the Jets will get it.
It's been a while since the Oilers have played, too. It'll be interesting to see how they look in that first game off of the layoff. Let's see what the chat has to say. But splits on Jets 3-1. Barry Stanchuk says 6-2 Oil. Winnipeg Jets 280 says yes, Huss. That in regards to the big bounce back. James Robinson, nope, not doing a prediction. It went the exact opposite of my last prediction, so not doing it. Justin F says 4-1 Oilers. Ooh, the bullet, not bullish on the Jets tonight. 5-0 Edmonton. Barry Stanchuk, my prediction, pain. Gitch is looking for a good one. 5-4 Jets. So yeah, we will see. I love, by the way, the Mr. T line from Barry Stanchuk deserves a quick little bell. Nicely done.
I will say, for fantasy, I took Appleton on DraftKings. He was like min price on the first line, getting first power play. I always take Appleton.
What's Vess? He's got to be 2,500, right?
I'm not. Yeah, Appleton was like 2,800. I'm not touching Vesalainen. He's on the third line. I don't think is he on power play 2? I have it. No, he's not even on power play 2.
No,
it's coming across the bottom right now. That's actually really helpful during the show when we're talking like, oh, there's the line. There's the line right there. No shortage of Jet stories today. Vesalainen is I don't know what was his salary. I'm bringing it up here.
Is he even listed? Like, I mean, he hasn't been in a game. I would imagine
he's 2,500. He's
25. Okay, that makes sense. Well, listen, if Appleton's 28, playing with Scheifele on, listen, I don't think they are the top line. I mean, I think the Dubois line is the number 1 line. But listen, he's playing with Mark Scheifele. They're going to get plenty of opportunities to get out there, and of course, he's on the power play as well now because that power play 1 unit. I don't know. Now with Pionk there. Along with Scheifele, Wheeler, Stastny, and Appleton. Appleton might be the best value play in DraftKings tonight.
I'm actually kind of curious. I
Jets.
find it interesting that they took Connor off there because I agree with Murat. Connor is your shooter. He's been the line A, just on the opposite side. They've been trying to feed him one-timers. I think we can all agree Josh Morrissey, great guy, nice player. His shot from the point on the power play, not a threat. We've seen that this year. Nice to see Pionk get a shot. He's been awesome. He's been one of their point leaders on D. He's got a decent shot. I think he even hit the post at the end of the last game. I know that because I did have him in fantasy that night and was like, I needed that point. Like, why can't a post count as a shot on goal in the stats? But I'm curious to see how that's going to go. Will they go back to Connor? I mean, Connor's your number one guy, and it is kind of weird that you wouldn't put him on the first power play. I mean, he's the trigger man. Maybe Scheifele will shoot more because he's kind of been a bit passive, I think, and people want to see him shoot the puck more and maybe get closer, and then he's kind of been hanging around on the boards.
Yeah, listen, I never mind the power play, 5-on-5. I think Paul Maurice, everyone just wants to see Mark Scheifele come out with a rocket strap to his back, with a real energetic game, getting on the forecheck, making the most of playing with guys like Kopp and Appleton, and we'll see what they can do. It'll be a bit of a different look for Mark Scheifele. Certainly he's usually in an extremely high offense role. They'll need more from that group today, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they play together, as well as how Paul Maurice handles these matchups when we get going right out of the first period. I have to say, Reem, of this entire season, the team has been, touch wood, pretty healthy. Now they're dealing with a few injuries. But, so many times we'd go into games where it's like, okay, well, they're playing these guys again, and, they're in a pretty good spot. I mean, there wasn't really big stories around the Winnipeg Jets other than, stacking up points and trying to get themselves into a playoff race. The amount of storylines going into this game, probably more than any time this season or for a long, long time, giving people a very thick notepad of things to look for going into the 8 o'clock puck drop.
Yeah, I mean, we got Ehlers' injury, new lines, Scheifele benched, coming off. We haven't even talked about this loss to Leafs. I know we briefly mentioned Ehlers and Joe Thornton jawing at each other. That was maybe one of the funniest moments of the season. I was just getting a laugh out of them. I mean, you got Joe Thornton, among the oldest players in the league. He's got this big, bushy, gray beard, just going off on Ehlers in the penalty box. And Ehlers just like sipping his water, like not paying attention to him. I thought Ehlers played it off pretty well.
Well, what about Thornton after the game too? Like, now I did not hear him say this, so maybe he was joking when he said it. And maybe he was kind of smirking, making fun of the fact that the Jets were pissed off with the hits and the fines that have happened with the Leafs. But he said that Ehlers should absolutely be getting a call from NHL player safety for the slash that he gave to Thornton. And listen, Thornton was pretty hot, so there was something that he didn't like. But when you consider everything that had happened over the course of this series to the Jets from the Toronto Maple Leafs and the fines that have been handed out, pretty rich from the bearded veteran to drop that on and call out Nikolaj Ehlers saying he should be getting a call from NHL player safety. Give me a break.
Yeah, I don't know. And they did ask, they asked Wheeler and Maurice about some of these hits the last couple of games, and their standard answer has been, the ref didn't call it, so it must not have been a penalty or something like that. And I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for these guys, for Maurice to go off on the refs in a post game one of these times. Go get fined. Fire up the fan base. Make him, because
he's saving those bullets for about 3 weeks from now. I think
he's saving them for the play. I guess if you're gonna get fined, make it be in a playoff game for calling out the officiating. And then there was one other call we didn't even touch on that Saturday game in Toronto. The Dylan DeMello embellishment.
Oh!
I tweeted out the video. It's two guys skating, DeMello and Muzzin. Muzzin reaches out and grabs DeMello. DeMello falls down. What, he put his hands in the air?
Coincidental minors.
He grabbed his shoulder as he fell. He didn't fall in the the manly enough way for the refs. I don't know, Muzzin even thought it was that. So maybe there's something I missed on TV, but it seems like if you reach out and grab a guy with your free hand and the guy falls, I don't know, it was I don't want to call it a clothesline, but it was clothesline-esque. And don't get me these calls where it's you send one guy for a penalty and one guy for embellishment. We've been saying this for years. They need to stop that. It's either one or the other. No?
I'm listen, if a guy, makes a ridiculous dive to make sure the ref, sees it, I mean, I guess I can live with that. But like in situations like that, that was embarrassing.
Was there a dive there? Am I crazy?
No,
like no one was really talking about it on my timeline. I'm like, am I nuts? Am I the only one who thinks this? Like, I tweeted it out. It got like no likes, so I don't know. And then the 4-on-4.
If that was embellishment, then I'm the king of Wakanda. Well,
Yeah.
You're you may be the king of Wakanda because apparently the referees decided that was the case. But anyways, it's not it's not what we want. But Split's asking about the Wheeler hit. Listen, Remis fired up the hot take extinguisher earlier today about all that.
Yeah, that was at the beginning. But 10 minutes into the show. He was mad. He still is mad about it. I'm just like blown away that I'm seeing the only. And then Gary texted me. He's like, "When did Winnipeg become a bunch of whiners?"
Gary's just taking advantage of the opportunity to give us a shot while watching the show. But we appreciate him dropping by.
Yeah. Just for the record, you did not like the Sandy hit. BA is asking in chat.
Yeah, no. I mean, I certainly thought it was interference. I mean, I didn't think that this was like a big attempt to injure. I thought it was one of those plays that happened sort of quickly.
Yeah.
But it is dangerous, and it was interference. So that's sort of where I come out on it. I would have no issue if they did do something to sort of eliminate those hits because, I mean, just ask Wheeler. I mean, he's been knocked out. He wasn't knocked out of the game that night, and that one was bad. The Brady Tkachuk one was brutal, and of course he got elbowed in the head and knocked him out for 2 weeks. So, I mean, I don't know what these hits, I don't see a lot of benefit from them. And if we're worried about player safety, which apparently they're supposed to be, I think they are dangerous for players. So maybe it'll be something they look at coming up in the future.
I did see Ray Ferraro say that he's not a fan because they're interference. So Ray says that, then I'm on board too. I'm taking Ray's side.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people in chat asking us about UFC on the weekend.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Big card. Some big viral moments, too. Are you the kind of guy, when you see a big, gruesome injury like that, are you watching the replay, like, over and over again, be like, and
can't watch it. Can't watch it at all.
To friends?
I heard about the Weidman injury, and all anyone needed to say was he got Anderson Silva'd with his leg. And just the thought of that turned my stomach, remembering what happened to Silva that first time when his leg snapped. So I have not seen that. I've made a point of not seeking out, or if people are talking about it, just avoiding it. But I'll tell you what, the other knockouts, I mean, the Usman knockout of Masvidal was about as clean a shot to the jaw. It almost knocked his head off. And, shout out to Masvidal for being a stand-up guy afterwards, just saying, hey, I got beat by the better fighter and owned it. And I'll tell you what, the big upset for me, Reem, was Thug Rose, who, almost took the champ's head off with that one kick and got on top of her. I was stunned at that. I saw how the Chinese champion, her name escapes me, but she's just basically an anvil. She is so hard, like her physique. I didn't think there was any way Rose was going to be able to beat her. But technique does that. There's a really cool video of her before the fight, standing there, focused, just yelling at herself that she is the best. And you know what? I think it was about a minute 18 later. She actually was the best. She's got the title back. That was. I'm not a hardcore UFC guy, but I definitely will pop in on the big fights. And this was, a great card, big crowd. I think there was at least 3 people wearing masks in the entire place in Jacksonville. But if you haven't had the vax, maybe don't be going to any UFC events anytime soon.
Yeah, the female fights on UFC, just as entertaining as a man. So amazing card. That knockout, the last one, Usman, good stoppage by the ref there. I think, he wanted to go in for a bit more. The ref's like, he might get up from this, but there were a couple extra shots. So that was a Hollywood style knockout, the way Masvidal's head, went back there. It was. I've seen some videos online. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no.
Well,
was,
not
a
awesome
heck
for
of a
him,
card.
but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. No, it definitely was not awesome.
like the
for
picture
him.
of the broadcast booth reaction there to that has been going around Twitter as well.
You know, many uses for that. Many uses
Yeah.
for that one. That's for sure, as we see. All right, great stuff. This was a lot of fun today. We got to thank Murat for joining us for a bit of a longer segment. We didn't want to plug in two guests today because there was so much to get to with the Jets, and no one better to do it with than Murat on a Monday here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Tomorrow on the program, we will probably check in with the Ice before their final game of the season, have a little bit more on the Moose. Hopefully they can continue their red-hot play, up 1-0 at last check while we're doing the show live here in the afternoon. And, of course, the latest on the Jets in between these two games against the Edmonton Oilers. They'll get back at it here in Winnipeg on Wednesday. So tomorrow, a full recap of tonight's action, a look ahead to game number 2 of the quick series, and more as the Jets look to get by without Nikolaj Ehlers, and a new look for all of the lines up front in the aftermath of that injury and the Scheifele benching on Saturday.
Yeah, and before we go, I do want to also bring up, we did have some news today about the NHL's second U.S. television partner. I know you're fired up for this. It's going to be TNT. That's what Bob McKenzie was reporting, that their close sports business journal reported this morning, that it's not going to be NBC. So they've been with NBC for 15 years, going with ESPN and TNT. So will we see your dream of Charles Barkley commentating on hockey, Stephen A. possibly commentating?
Like, this needs to happen. I mean, we want to bring this sport to a new audience. We want a lot of people to get in. I don't know that you could have a better way of doing it than getting the entertainment of Charles Barkley in on some sort of a panel show. And, of course, the great Stephen A. Smith. Mm-hmm. Don't come at me with Stephen A. his annoying takes. He's the best in the business. Nobody creates content like Stephen A. So anyways, I'm here for all of it. Going to be interesting to see. And I think it'll be great for the National Hockey League to not be tied up with one programmer and to get the rub from ESPN as well as TNT. And, that's good on Bill Daly, Gary Bettman, and the guys that did these deals. But, man, it will be a big difference because it's sort of been a mainstay on NBC for the better part of the last decade. Yeah,
NBC's, I think, done a good job of, covering hockey. They've had the Stanley Cup Final, the Winter Classic, big part of that as well. So I like that they're going with the two. I think you got to spread it out among the broadcast partners. We've seen that here with the one. You wonder if they go to two, because then everyone's getting in on the coverage. You see basketball has multiple, baseball as well, NFL. I think you need to have that. I mean, no one's going to pay the bill for the entire agreement now anymore. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm curious what ESPN's going to look like, what TNT's going to look like. People are joking about TNT. I mean, they do March Madness. TBS does baseball. They do basketball as well. So it's going to look different, and I'm curious to see what's going to go. And maybe we will see Charles Barkley and Shaq. I mean, they have TNT is the most entertaining basketball halftime show, and if they can bring that to hockey, I think that's a positive.
Taylor says, I would pay to listen to Shaq commentate hockey. There's some great crossover potential for sure with the new partners for the National Hockey League. That being said, that's in the future. Tonight is what we're focused on. Jets and Oilers, 8 p.m. tonight. And, of course, 5:30 will be that game between Calgary and Montreal. All of a sudden, a very interesting game in the North Division. Shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. If you're looking for a great getaway in Manitoba, normally they're full of Americans through the month of June into July. Not the case this year. A lot of business has been pushed back to next season, so take advantage of the availability. It is a world-class place. We'll be getting out there this summer. I can't wait. Find out more online at aikenslake.com. And again, I announced this on Friday, but we want to welcome Assiniboia Downs to our sponsor family. Great to have ASD on board. We'll talk to Darren Dunn about the upcoming season in a couple weeks. But handicapper Kirk Contois will join us on Friday to tee up this weekend's Kentucky Derby. That's going to do it for us today, folks. Thanks to Not AutoCorp, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Nick and Nicky DQ, Breezy Bend, Cool Bet, and Aikens Lake and Assiniboia Downs. Should be a great game tonight. We thank again Murat, everyone that joined us live in the YouTube chat. Make sure you hit that link, hit that subscribe button, and spread the word on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great night. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock here live on YouTube, and later on in your podcast feed on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.